Okay, we are testing audio and we are testing visual before we start out tonight. So I promised that I would be coming in a little bit early to test all of that out with you guys. So let me know that you can see me and that you can hear me, that it's coming in audio-wise and visual-wise, and we'll be testing for the next 10 minutes. There is already 98 people here. This is so crazy. Awesome. Just let me know in the chat box if you can see me and you can hear me. Getting so excited. Anybody that just popped in, it looks like another 30 people just showed up. We are testing audio and we are testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. We want to make sure that you have no problems throughout the webinar. If you're having any kind of difficulty, we sometimes recommend exiting out of the webinar and then coming back into the webinar. We recommend doing this on a desktop or on a laptop computer. You can do it from your phone or your iPad. We've just had the best success with laptops and with computers. Awesome. People are letting me know that they can see me and they can hear me. This is so exciting. I'm so excited. I'm doing this from my home tonight, guys. I'll explain more of that in a little bit, but I was so afraid that it wasn't going to work technologically, that there would be a glitch or something, and so I've just been praying real hard, and thankfully we are here. So anybody that just popped in, we are testing audio and we are testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. So come on in, let me know if you can see me and you can hear me, and then, go chill for a second. You've got 10 minutes, grab a cup of tea, whatever you need, wine, I don't care what it is, but we are gonna have a good time tonight. So thanks for letting me know that you can see me and you can hear me. That chat box is for you guys for the entire evening. You guys can talk and share thoughts with one another. It's really to cultivate community. Awesome, great. People can see me and hear me. Okay, for everybody that just popped in, we're testing audio and we're testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. We want to make sure there's no technical difficulties throughout the evening. So if you showed up early, thanks for being here and present. And that's exactly how I was in school. I had to be 10 minutes early for everything. So I hope that you're cozy. I hope that you are happy. I hope you've had a good day. You can be tweeting or Instagramming or whatever it is. Be sure to tag me in it. I would love to see your little cozy spaces where you're taking the class from. We do every Craving class with hashtag Craving series, if you need a hashtag. Awesome. Michelle's going to put in her last load of laundry, and then she's going to come on in. We got about 9 minutes, so come in, make sure you can see me, hear me, let me know, and then go do your thing and come on back in 9 minutes. Woo! We have 150 people in the room right now. Who is so excited for this class? I've been so excited. Awesome. Anybody that just popped into the room, we are testing audio and we're testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. So jump in the chat box, let me know that you're not having any technical difficulties, and we will be starting in 8 minutes. Peru, we got Peru in the house. This is amazing, guys. I'm so excited. This is gonna be a fun night. I've been looking forward to this all week, even though it's technically Tuesday, but still. Aaron's asked, in the meantime, do I have any funny jokes? Oh goodness, I feel like I'm like funny, but like not on purpose. Like all my funny moments, like I don't realize that I'm being humorous. So I'm sure jokes will come on throughout the night. Anybody that just popped in, we are testing audio and we're testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. Awesome, somebody saw me at Orlando and Propel. Yes, so jump in the chat box and let me know that you can see me and you can hear me. And we are going to be starting in 7 minutes. Allie just asked if there was any update on my assistant's date. Claire will be in the class tonight, but yeah, she went on the date and they had a great time, and they're going out again on Saturday. And so I'm very excited that I matched them up, and I'll be there at the wedding giving a speech surely. Awesome. Anybody that just popped in, we are testing audio and we're testing visual to make sure you can see me and you can hear me. Pop into the chat box, let me know. Want to make sure no one's having any technical difficulties. We said it before, but we recommend logging in from a computer or a laptop if you're able to. The phone, I think the phone works. We tested it on the phone earlier. There shouldn't be any technical difficulties, but we just want to make sure that everybody has access to audio and access to visual. Andrea is so hyped for this. I am so hyped for this. Woo! There's 178 in the room. I feel like there's going to be a rush of people come at 9 o'clock, which is crazy, guys. There's over 1,600 people signed up for this. I don't know why 1,600 people want to hear me talk, but that's amazing, and God is cool, and I'm really excited to talk about him tonight. So, awesome. Elena just asked where I'm doing this webinar from. This is actually my home. Like, this is where I live. That's my office back there. I do have an office at the So Worth Loving office, but I have so many resources to share with you guys tonight that I was like, it would be easier to not cart 60 books over to the office. And so I'm actually doing this webinar from my home tonight. So, and I did chop my hair off. Somebody asked that. Goodbye, hair. Anybody that just popped into the room, we are testing audio and we're testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. I'm really excited for tonight. I want to make sure that everybody gets the most out of it. And so make sure that you've got the audio tested and the visual tested and that you are good to go. If at any point you need to jump out, you're like, oh no, I forgot that I have a date, or I have dinner with friends really late at night. Like, you will get the recording. Don't worry. If you need to go to bed, you can peace out. I know that we got some crazy time zones going on here. And so if it's 5 a.m. your time, you will get the recording. But it's super fun to be involved with the chat and with everything that's going on live in the class. You can also be tweeting, Instagramming, #Craving series. This is one of my Craving classes, and I'm really excited to bring it to you guys. We've got about 5 minutes until it's starting, so grab your coffee, grab your whatever it is. You need water, a blanket, be cozy, sweatpants, and we will be starting in about 5 minutes. I did do the wife chop. Somebody just asked me that. I guess I did. And I waited a month after the wedding, but I was like, hair's gone. Yeah, I'm actually literally having you guys on my table tonight, which is really cool to be able to have 1,600 people in my home tonight. I'm very excited about that. Woo! Anybody that just popped in, we're testing audio, we're testing visual to make sure that you can see me and that you can hear me and that you have no technical difficulties throughout the night. I'm going to say that probably 10 more times, but we want to make sure that you get the most out of this. So pop into the chat box and let me know that you can see me and you can hear me. And the chats, they go pretty long. And so I always go back after the class and I read through the chat so that I can see all of your words and all of your encouragement and all of your questions. Somebody just asked how long this webinar is going to be. My goal is to keep it at an hour. And so it may run a little bit over. I will do a question and answer at the end of it. And so we will try not to go over an hour and 15 minutes. We will try to start right on time. Want to get you guys to bed if you go to bed at 10 o'clock. Want to get you out for dinner plans if you are out in California. And yeah, I'm going to try to be clear and concise, and we're going to have a good time. Awesome. People are letting me know the audio and the visual is great. This is wonderful. It's awesome morning in the Philippines, if you were wondering. That is amazing. Thank you for coming out. That's so encouraging to me. Somebody's got sushi and chopsticks and a journal ready to go. Somebody just asked how soon the recording will be shared. If you do have to pop out 1 hour after we wrap the class, the recording is going to magically show up in your inbox, which means you can watch it forever and ever, however long you want to watch it. So awesome. We do have a loft bedroom. It is up there. And that's my office over there. So just a few more minutes and we are going to get started. I just dropped a PDF into the chat box for anybody that might not have been able to access the notes or didn't get that email. That is the notes packet for tonight. I wonder if some people printed it out, or you can have it open in your browser, whatever way you want to do it. But just putting it there just so that you guys know. Aaron just asked if we can still sign up for the writing class on Saturday. Yes, you can still sign up. Actually, tomorrow's the last day that you can sign up for the writing intensive, but if you go to hannahbrunchercreative.com, check out the store, there are still a few tickets available for the writing intensive. If you want to come, I want you there. It's a 3-hour intensive though, so it's a little more intense in this class. Okay, just a few more minutes and we are going live. Anybody that just popped in, we are testing audio and we are testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. We want no one to have any kind of audio or visual problems throughout the evening. So just pop into the chat box, let me know that you see me and that you hear me, and we will be starting in just a minute. Anybody that just asked for the notes, I'm just putting the PDF in there for you guys to access. Just a few more minutes. Anybody that just popped in, we're testing audio and we are testing visual to make sure that you can see me and you can hear me. So pop into the chat box, let me know that you can see me and hear me, and we will be starting in just a second. We recommend coming from a computer or a laptop, a desktop or a laptop is the best way for you to access this recording, but at the same time, you can do it on your phone. We've tested it on the phone and it works. And so we just want to make sure that you have good audio and visual connection. I think my mom actually might be in here. Mom, if you're out there, write in the chat box. She said she was coming, so come on, Mom, where are you? Okay, awesome. 1 more minute, guys. 1 more minute, we're counting down. So excited. Awesome. Okay, anybody that just popped in, I'm seeing people pop in left and right. We are testing audio and we are testing visual to make sure that you see me and you hear me. And so you just pop into the little chat box. Let me know that you see me and you hear me, that you're having no issues. We're gonna be starting in 1 minute. So if you need to quickly grab some water or whatever it is, or grab your salad or cookies or whatever you're eating. I'm drinking some kombucha to make me feel better because I had a crazy sinus infection a few days ago. But I'm here and nothing is stopping me from this class. So I didn't see any comments from my mom, so I'm wondering if she's here or not. But maybe she is. Maybe she hasn't figured out the technology. So awesome. Okay, doesn't seem like anybody's having any issues. We are going to be getting going. Are you guys ready for tonight? Are you excited for what is about to go down? Because I'm excited. I've been prepping. I've been getting ready for this thing, and I have a lot to share on my heart, and I really want this to be a great discussion, and hopefully that the words that I say encourage you and lift you and motivate you, and that they are words that you need to hear. That's really what I want to do more than anything, is encourage you and empower you and keep you pushing forward in your journey of faith. So there's a chat box to the right of your screen, and that is where you guys can dialogue all night, get to know one another, maybe exchange some email addresses, start a Facebook group, whatever you guys want to do, just so that you have a chance to be in community with one another. Sometimes it's hard to find people in your town or in your city that relate to you or have the same kinds of values as you. And so that's why I love these online classes, because you get the chance to just talk to people around the world. Also, there's a notes packet. I've posted it in here a few times, but I'm posting it one more time for you guys. If you want to access it on your browser or you want to print it out, there is a little bit of writing down things, a little bit of note taking, obviously, but a little bit of inner work, kind of like inner heart work that will be happening towards the beginning of the class. And so I just want you guys to have access to those questions. So it's 9:03 and I am going to begin. Chat amongst yourself. I love encouragement. I love to know what you're liking, what you're digging, if there's good words, you know, I'm really spurred on by that stuff. So please use the chat box. Please agree to a Facebook group, whatever it is that you guys want to do while the class is going on. I won't be offended if you're chatting during class. I'd love for you guys to just chime in and let me know where you're coming from. Like, where in the world are you showing up from? Just so I can look that over later and just be encouraged by you guys coming out at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. It might be a different time for you, but it's 9 p.m. here. So let's do this. I think we've covered all the logistics. So I'm Hannah Brencher. Some of you might know me, some of you might not know me, but this is a Craving class. And so this is actually a series that I do on a regular monthly basis. And so we pick a different topic and we dissect it for about an hour. And we break it down into really practical steps. And so this is my Craving Faith session. I wanted this to be a free class. I wanted this to be open and accessible to anybody that wanted to learn more about faith and building faith. And so that's what we're digging into in this class. But no Craving class would be complete without sharing the honorary Craving series story that is shared at every Craving class. So if you've been in the class before, you know the story I'm about to share, but I feel like it's a ritual now and I have to share it. And so about 2.5 years ago, I went on a camping trip with my friend Nia, and I'm a storyteller, by the way. So I'm going to share a lot of stories because that's just how I process things. But so I went on a camping trip with my friend Nia, and we basically really didn't know anything about camping, if I'm being honest with you. And so we show up, we've got this old jankety tent. We don't know how to build a fire. We don't really know much about camping. I swear it was one of the coldest weeks in Georgia. We were just very ill-equipped. And so we show up after sunset to set up our camp, and we bring a bunch of our stuff out into the center of this campground. We had one working headlamp, so that's not a lot of light. We go back out, we bring more stuff over, and when we come back to the campground, there was a Maglite flashlight sitting in the middle of the campground. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, this is how most horror stories start. We are going to be dead by the end of this camping trip. Come to find out that this Maglite flashlight was left by a man who was at the campground next to us. He saw that we had one headlamp and was like, these girls are not going to get far in their journeys of trying to camp. And so he came over and he helped us. We've got the tent together on our own, but he helped us set up camp, and then he helped us build a fire. He basically built the fire for us. And I don't remember his name, but I do remember he had like 2 first names. So I always say if you've got 2 first names, like you're basically somebody from Touched by an Angel. You know, you remember that TV show where they would just show up and then they would disappear? That's what I think this guy was. And so we wake up in the morning and, or later on in the evening, he had helped us refuel our fire again. And then he invited us over to his fire. And then we woke up in the morning and he had built our fire again for us, and he'd brought us coffee. So at that point, I thought, like, I should probably marry this dude, even if he is an angel. I didn't marry him, though. But so basically, somewhere in the middle of the day, we go for a hike and we come back and the man is gone. He has pulled together his whole camp. He has left and he's no longer there. And we realized in that moment, okay, well, we can't really stay here in camp because while this man had helped us build a fire, he'd never actually taught us how to build a fire. And we realized at that point, okay, well, we don't know how to build a fire. We were left no better off than when he was here with us. And so we packed up our stuff and we left too. And so I always share that story at the beginning of every Craving class because it truly is the heart of why I do what I do. I think it's one thing in the world that we live in today to build a fire that everybody can come around and get their inspiration and their warmth and just basically stick close to that fire. But then when people try to journey off and make it 5 steps this way or 5 steps that way, they realize they don't know how to build their own fires. And so they always have to go back to the fire that's fueling them. That's not the kind of teacher that I want to be. I want to be the type of teacher that teaches people how to build fires, that gives people practical tools so that you can go out and you can start your own fire. And so other people are able to come to your fire and learn how to build a fire, and then they can start their own fires. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like we're living in a really scary, dark world at times. And I don't think that anybody would disagree that this world needs a little bit more light. It needs a little bit more fire. And so that is the story that I always share, because I really want to teach people how to build fires. I want to teach people how to be examples with their lives. I work really hard to do that with my own life so that I can share whatever skills or disciplines or things that I am learning with you guys. And so that's really where the Craving series came from. And we've done several of them. They're available in the store if you want to get any of them, hannahbrenchercreative.com. Check out the store. We've done the balance, we've done discipline, we've done community, we've done boundaries, and this is the one on faith. And so this one, it's really challenging. I've been praying a lot about it, but I really believe in this message, and I believe in encouraging you guys. And I want to let you know it's okay if you have questions. It's okay if you are kind of struggling in your faith or you don't really know what you believe. This is an atmosphere where anybody can come in and anybody can listen and anybody can chat, and we really encourage those discussions. I'm just going to pull up my notes so that I'm good to go. Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna dig right in, and I'm just gonna start off just by praying really quick, because that is how I just want to seal this and give it to God. So wherever you are, you can still bow your head. But thank you, God, for this opportunity to be here tonight and to pour into the lives of so many people. God, I just pray that people feel encouraged and they feel lifted up, and that I might be a light, God. I pray that the words coming out of my mouth are not my own words, God, but ones that are sealed by you, and they hold wisdom and they hold power. And I pray specifically for the people in this room that are just feeling a little bit brokenhearted and feeling a little bit lost, God, that even in their brokenness and even when they feel lost, you're still with us. So we thank you, and we seal all of this in your beautiful Son's name. Amen. Okay, I just prayed on a webinar. I think that's the first time that I've ever prayed on a webinar. But yeah, so I'm going to paste it one more time in there. This is the notes packet for anybody that wants to be using it. I also have one other link that I'm going to send to you guys right now. This is a resource list. I'm going to be talking about a lot of resources during the class. But I have set it up so that you've got all the Amazon links to all the different books and Bibles and things that I am referencing. So you have access to that. So I'll probably post it a few more times throughout the class. But yeah, let's just dig right in. I'm just going to say from the very beginning, I am not an expert. I'm probably never going to be able to call myself an expert, but I'm somebody who is learning every single day, and I am excited to learn, and I am really on fire with my faith, and I try to grow in it every single day. And so I'm just going to share my heart with you guys. The first part is the Getting Started page on the notes packet. So just starting off, I would just say, you know, like I was looking up and seeing what the definition of faith actually was. And it was interesting that the first definition that comes up is complete trust or confidence in someone or something. And I thought that was really beautiful, because what you'll see through this class is that, you know, I am a Christian, and so that is the belief that I hold. I am a believer in God as Father. I am a believer in Jesus. I am a believer in him dying on the cross. I'll probably say that throughout the class. And that's something that I've chosen to put my faith in. But I can also say that I know a lot of people who might believe in God, but at the same time don't have any faith because they do not put any kind of trust or confidence in this, in God. And so that's kind of why I wanted to do this Craving faith class, because I wanted to be able to help people build trust and build relationship with their faith. And so the question might be, why faith and why grow it? There's a few things to that. One, I believe that faith really affects you. I believe that faith changes you. I believe that a lot of positive, beautiful things come from faith. It doesn't always make sense. It's not always the most rational thing in the world, but it is beautiful, and to me, it is true. And I have seen the positive effects and growth of that from my own life. At the same time, faith affects other people. I think that my religion and what I believe is based on love and on truly loving one another with truth and with discipline and with serving one another. And I have gotten to see firsthand that faith affects other people, that in a world that sometimes feels dark or it feels scary, it's hard to find people that aren't looking for something to put their trust or their confidence in. Another reason that I believe faith is important is that I think that internal work is really important in an external culture. We are living in a culture where everything gets put online. What you're eating, what you're doing, what you're drinking. I know because I've also been one that does that. I put my food up on Instagram all the time. But if we're only doing the external work, if we are only showing our lives to the public and not actually doing something on the inside, I think I don't think we'll be strong. I don't think that we'll be healthy. I don't think that we'll be happy. I know this from my own life in times where I've invested more in my exterior life than my interior life, that I felt a little bit, I felt tired, I felt stressed, I feel broken down. And so knowing that faith is something that builds you up, and that internal work, like faith ultimately is action, but it's also internal work that I hope that we can all dig down deep and do. Also, I believe in growing our faith and cultivating our faith. I don't think that growth can happen without cultivation. And I think we throw the word cultivation around a lot because we always say like cultivate relationships and cultivate faith. And really, the word cultivation is just another word for refinement. Cultivation, when it comes to a garden and cultivating plants and cultivating flower beds, is actually the act of getting rid of what isn't necessary. And I think that that's kind of just crazy to think about that being the act of cultivation. And so many times in our lives, in order to build our faith and to build our trust, it is the act of getting rid of the things that are not necessary. So the question might be, why is this so hard? Why is it so hard to build faith? I'm a big believer that anything that is worth it is bound to be hard. The best stuff in life requires a process and requires discipline and is often really hard. I always say that the gospel is like the gym. The more you do it, the more you see results, in the sense that you can't go to the gym once and expect to have a six-pack and Michelle Obama arms. You have to keep going back to the gym over and over and over again, in the same way that you have to keep revisiting your faith over and over and over again. You have to pray over and over and over again. You have to read your Bible over and over and over again. And so it's like going to the gym. At first it's painful, you don't want to go, and then slowly but surely you start to see results, and that results feel more motivation, and you realize that you are a stronger person and you are a better person and you're a happier person. And I can tell you, faith, having quiet time, all of that stuff works exactly like the gym. And when you stick with it, you see results. Another reason that faith is so hard, because trust is hard. Trust is really, really hard. Like, we are asked to trust a God that we can't see and we oftentimes can't feel, but our only examples of trust in this human life are with people. And a lot of times, unfortunately, people being broken, we hurt one another. We say mean things. We walk away. We slam the door. We don't come back for one another. I wish that I could say that like everyone in this room had perfect human interactions, but I know that that's not true. And so that's why faith is hard, is because faith is putting your complete trust in someone or something. And in this world, we have to trust someone. And it's hard when we don't have a perfect example. And so I feel like a lot of times we funnel God through the lens of our imperfect human interactions, when we're meant to funnel our human interactions through the lens of a perfect God. And we neglect that, and we don't do that often. And I'm not faulting anybody, because for a long time, I didn't trust God because I didn't trust people. I didn't trust ex-boyfriends. I didn't trust friends that had left me or abandoned me. And so that kind of filtered into my relationship with God. And so if you're sitting there in the boat and you're like, whoa, that's me, you are not alone in that. Trust me, 100%, you're not alone. One more thing, appreciating the process is the whole point of faith. I know that we are a destination-driven world, but there's so much gold in the process. It's in those little dotted lines that lead to a destination. That's where life happens. That's where faith happens. So the next page of the notes, I'm just going to put it there one more time in case you need it, is something that I do in most of my Craving classes. It is a taking inventory page. And so while I am sharing whatever wisdom I have and trying to pour into you guys as much as I can, and hopefully it's good stuff, I also want you guys to have a chance to reflect and to ask yourself some questions. And so I'm going to put a few minutes on the clock, and I want you guys to dig down deep, and I want you to answer some of the questions that I put in the taking inventory section. The first question, how did 2016 go for you in regards to faith? And if you are a vocal sharer, if you're like, I want to share in the comment section, please go ahead. We definitely, we cheer on the brave ones. If you're internal and you just want to work on your paper, that's fine too. I'll give you guys a few seconds in between each question, but that's the first question. How did 2016 go for you in regards to faith? I'm going to try to be quiet. Awesome. Loving your answers, guys. You are great. You are making this chat box awesome. So thank you for that. The next question is, what do you hope to gain, grow in, or learn in 2017? Hey, Mom. I saw my mom's here. Everyone say hi to my mom. She's here. I was wondering if she would show up. Awesome. Somebody said they hope to gain self-love in 2017. Somebody hoped to gain spiritual discipline. Oh, Sandy's here too. Look at all my friends are here. Douglas is here. Anastasia's here. Wow, I didn't even get to look at the chat box and realize I know so many of you guys. Awesome. This is great. My mom is tuning in from Connecticut. She will also be on my writing intensive. Okay. Next question, and you guys can definitely dig in later. These are questions that could probably take you a few days of digging deep. That's why I like to ask them. Where do you lack faith and trust altogether? Don't feel pressured to share that one. You can keep it to yourself if you want, but I know that there are some vulnerable, fearless souls in the room. But I know that's a tough question, but it's a good question. Where do you lack faith and trust altogether? Somebody wants to learn more about prayer in 2017? Great goal. Relationships, people, truth. Somebody lacks faith in their future and in their health concerns. I totally get that. You guys are awesome. I love you. I'm already having so much fun. And I also love that my mom signed in as mom. Okay. Next question. Who do you look up to when it comes to faith? Is it your mom? Is it your best friend? Is it somebody you've never met before? But who do you look up to that you're like, wow, that person has great faith and I want to be like them? It's so hard for me to stay quiet during this. Someone said my husband. Oh, it's sweet when you guys say me. I love that. Christine Kane, she's a beast when it comes to faith. I look up to her. She is amazing. Erwin McManus, heck yeah. Shelly Giglio, awesome. She's one of my pastors. I love her. Louis Giglio, Blake Odgers, yes, representing Blake Odgers. Jess Connolly, she is an awesome woman of God. I love her. Stephen Furtick, yes, so cool. Maya Angelou, Priscilla Shire, these are powerhouse people. I wish they were all sitting around the table right now helping me do this class. Okay, and the last question. What kind of faith do you want to have? And you can write down a few words and you can definitely elaborate on this later because I know that's a really big question, but it's cool to think about it. I think that sometimes we can't even get to a place where we can look up and realize like, wow, I've made so much progress until we actually write down what it is that we want and what it is that we're working towards. Awesome. These are really great people. Ian Voskamp, Ben Stewart is amazing. I love him. I look up to him. Donald Miller. Awesome. Great. Mo. Yes, I know these people. Unshakable. Awesome. People are saying they want deep faith, contagious faith, one without fear. Perfect. Realistic faith, rooted faith. These are perfect. This is good. You guys are awesome. Awesome. Okay, it is 9:25 and we are going to move on from the taking inventory part and we are going to dig deeper. I feel like if I didn't share with you guys where I was coming from in this, it would be kind of like missing half of the point of why I'm even really adamant about this faith journey and expanding people's faith. So I'm going to briefly share my story with you guys. If you move over to the next page, there should be 3 points. And those are kind of the 3 tenets that make up what I consider to be my faith journey. And so if anybody has read my book or they've followed along with my blog, you probably know that the first time that I said yes to faith, apart from childhood, trying to figure it out, basically just saying like, yes, I believed in Jesus because what else was there to do when you went to church? When I really went out to look for my own faith, the first time that I said yes to God in this way was in a church in Chelsea, New York City, standing on top of a balcony. I wrote about it in my book. Some girls actually like emailed me and were like, we're going to go to the place where you found your faith. Can you give us the address to the church? So I had no idea that it was that impactful to people. But what I always remembered about that is that, well, that is the moment that I really said yes to God and I met God. I kind of felt like from that point forward, even though I was trying out churches and I was trying to read my Bible, there wasn't really anything that was kind of electrifying me. There wasn't anything that made me feel like, yes, I want to give my whole entire life to this thing. I still had a lot of fear. I had a lot of anxiety. I didn't really trust God. I didn't really trust people. I didn't really have this inner burning thing inside of me that I would have said was faith. And the reason that point right there says the Elvis in the room, I always reference back to a story of about 2 years ago, when we had a crew come from Kleenex, the tissue company. They came to film a video with me. And there was this woman that was a producer. And this woman was obsessed, like absolutely obsessed with Elvis more than anything. And she would use any chance that she could to inject Elvis into a conversation. She had Elvis tattoos. She drove an Elvis car. She had like an Elvis jukebox. She had everything Elvis that you could imagine or think of. And I remember at one point they sat me down and they were videotaping me and they were asking me questions and they told me, don't look at the camera, look directly at her, the Elvis producer, and talk to her. And so they're asking me these questions and they're getting deeper and deeper with their questions. And I'm just talking right at her. And it's this really unique, intimate moment where like tears were streaming down her face. And I obviously couldn't say anything to her, but answer the questions. But I felt like I was talking right at her. And in that moment, I could just sense that she was sad and that she was lonely and that there were things inside of her that I wanted to know about, but I couldn't learn about any of those things because all she ever wanted to bring up was Elvis. It was this big Elvis standing in the room in a lot of ways that we say like the elephant is standing in the room. And a lot of times in my own life, I felt that way. If you've read me from the beginning, you know that I wouldn't bring God up and I wouldn't bring faith up. Really at all in the beginning of my writing. And it felt really painful for me to ever write about God. And I had said to my mom, like, I am not going to talk about God. This is not going to be something that I put up on my blog because faith offends people. And faith I just didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to turn anybody off. I wanted to really have followers. If I'm being honest at that point, like I loved what I was doing, but I also wanted to be able to gain popularity instead of being that person that people were turned off by. And so I didn't want to be the girl that people didn't like because of what I was talking about. But more and more, God just became that Elvis in the room. It was the thing that was taking over my life, and yet I didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't want to sort it out with my audience. And so I kept my faith for a long time on the internet because I was afraid of what people would think of me. I was afraid if people would judge me. I was afraid if people would just want nothing to do with me. But I can tell you this, that what I found to be really crazy is that wherever I would go, people always asked me, when is the time that you first believed? And I could tell the story about being in the church in Chelsea, New York City, and the feeling that I had. But I have to be honest, that was one meeting. It was one meeting, and it happened, and people kept bringing it up to me over and over and over again. And I had this realization, like somewhere, probably like a few months into living into Georgia, so that was about 2.5 years ago, that I didn't want to get to the end of my life and say I had one meeting with God in a church in Chelsea, New York City, and then I never saw him again. And I realized that my faith was really dead and that no one was really fueling that fire, and that I was really just filling holes with a lot of things. I was filling holes with guys. I was filling holes with texts to people. I was filling holes with plans. I was filling holes with dating applications. I was on dating applications way too much when I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I think that I moved to Atlanta, I got pulled out of my comfort zone, and I realized where my faith really was. My faith was not in God. My faith was in external things. And so I just really, I just remember wanting to get closer to God, but also not knowing how to get closer to God. And I kind of felt like a fraud because here I was, and I said that I believed, and I went to church every single Sunday, and I did all the things, but I was dead inside. I felt nothing towards this faith, and I felt like God, more than anything, had abandoned me, had told me, like, go to Georgia. There's going to be something there for you in Georgia. And I get to Georgia, and I think, like, well, God's not here. Like, God waved me off in Connecticut, and I'm stuck here. And so, I mean, honestly, like, let's be honest, I would go to my office space on Fridays and Saturday nights because I didn't have a lot of friends at the time. And I would light a candle, and I would be like, I'm going to talk to God. I'm going to speak to God. And I don't know if you've ever, like, pulled out the Bible and you, like, flop open to a page and you're like, speak to me, God, I'm listening. And, like, it's like Exodus or the part where all the people die, and you're like, well, that's not really encouraging. God must not be here. And I did this so many times, and I can tell you every single time I ended up watching Gilmore Girls. And so people have asked me, have you seen the last 4 episodes of Gilmore Girls? And I'm like, no, because I only watched season 1.5, and that's because I was so depressed that Rory and Lorelai were like my best friends. I liked them more than I liked God. And so now I don't watch Gilmore Girls because it reminds me of when I was really, really depressed. So no, I haven't seen the rest of Gilmore Girls. But side note, But that's just to say, I was like, I can't get to God, so I'm going to fill it however I need to fill it. And I will never forget going home to Connecticut and seeing my spiritual mentor. I was 6 months into living in Atlanta, and I said to her, like, can I come home now? Is it over? Is it done? I don't want to be here anymore. And she said, no, you are in the valley. I didn't know at the time why Christians talk so much about valleys. And she said, you've seen a lot of high highs and you've seen a lot of low lows, but you need to learn how to walk in everyday life. And to me, that sounded boring, that sounded monotonous, that sounded like something I didn't actually want to do, because I didn't think everyday life or everyday faith could actually be exciting. I didn't think it could be worthwhile. We live in a culture that tells us that everyday life is not worthwhile, that you need to be doing something impressive all the time, that you always need to be putting something on Instagram, that you always need to look good, that you always need to be perfect, that you always need to be following through on your resolutions. And it's just not true. I mean, the culture sells us a lie. And I hate to be like so passionate about it that I want to just rip through the screen, but like, it's a lie. We can fill holes only so long before you realize it's empty and it's fruitless and none of it is working. And so I remember going back to Georgia and being really fed up, and I just prayed a prayer, like a rock bottom prayer of like, God, I can't do this anymore. Either you are real or you are not real. Be real or be not real, but I'm piecing out if you don't show yourself to me. And I have the exact prayer if anybody wants it afterwards. I wrote it down, but I basically said, like, you need to wreck me. If faith is real, you need to wreck me. And you need to leave me so weak and woozy that I have no choice but to stand on your feet and let you lead this dance. And I'm just going to tell you guys, be careful of the prayers you pray, because when you say something like that, God might take it literally, because he took that prayer very literally. And I can tell you, several weeks later, my life fell apart in the worst way possible. I was fine one day, and the next day I can remember where I was standing, what I was doing, when this pain came over my entire body, and I was left paralyzed in fear, like absolutely paralyzed in fear. And that was the start of a very serious battle with depression, that if I thought I'd faced depression before, this was a completely different beast. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't think, I couldn't breathe half the time. I couldn't go out and interact with friends without having panic attacks all over the place. I would have night terrors at night. It was the most traumatic time of my life. And I thought, where is God in all of this? Like, where is he and where is he taking me? Because this was not part of the plan. And I remember saying to my friend Clifton at one point, like, I'm just mad. Like, I prayed and here I am. And I said, I just want to go back to normal. If I go back to normal, I swear I won't ever do anything wrong again. Like, I won't disrupt the peace. I won't do anything. I just want to go back to normal. And he said to me, your normal is what got you here. And so when a tree gets struck by lightning, it never goes back to normal. You are going to have to build a new kind of normal. And he couldn't have been more right. It was definitely rocky to build a new normal. It was definitely hard. I had to choose to get honest with people. I had to choose to get vulnerable with people. I had to choose to sit with my Bible every single day, even when I didn't want to. And there were days where I was just literally writing scripture word for word, even though I didn't believe it at the time, just to let it get into my brain. You see, the lies had become so toxic. The depression had grown such a strong voice that I gave to it, that I was lost in the sense that I didn't know how to actually believe truth. I didn't know how to believe love, because all I believed was fear and all I believed was lies. And so I built this new kind of normal. And I can remember at this time that once I let go and I let the process happen, I began to feel God more than I have ever felt God in the biggest time of my suffering. And I remember praying to God specifically right after I'd gone to the hospital. And I had said to him, even if you do not heal me, even if you do not make me better, and I feel like a crazy lunatic for the rest of my life, I will still tell people that you are good. I got to that point in my faith because God during that time never left me, never abandoned me, showed up for me in so many signs and wonders that I could spend hours talking about, surrounded me with people that reignited my faith. And I realized I've never felt more surrounded and more completed than in this time where I am at my most broken. And so that kind of was the rebuilding of my faith. Point 3, finally meeting him, was that even when I walked out of that depression and I rebuilt my life, and a lot of you guys got to witness it on the internet, and I became healthy and I learned balance and I learned boundaries, nothing really changed in the sense of like my faith didn't become the strong thing that it is today until I picked up this book and it just started to change things. And so I say finally meeting him because that's the hashtag that we used when my old roommate finally met the man she fell in love with in Britain. But I'm referring to God right now, that I reached a point actually right before I met Lane, the month before I met Lane, where I realized that the gospel, which is 4 books about Jesus in the Bible, are 4 books that I had never read. And I'd never read them on purpose because I was afraid, what if it doesn't change me? People say the gospel changes everything. And what if it doesn't change me? Well, I then have to give up entirely and walk away. And I didn't want to be wrong in that. And I had some conversations with friends, and my friend said, you need to read the gospel. Like, you need to learn about Jesus. If you say you believe in Jesus, you kind of need to know like who Jesus is and what happened when he walked the earth. And so me being the planner that I am, coming off of a bad breakup, I devised a plan, and I devised a plan that I was going to go to a different coffee shop in Atlanta every single day for the whole month of September of 2015. And I was going to sit and I was going to read the gospel. I was going to read all 4 books of the Bible. I was going to spend a week in John, a week in Mark, a week in Matthew, and a week in Luke. And really the only thing that I was going to do was sit there and I was going to read it through as many times as I possibly could and pick a different coffee shop every single day. And I'm telling you guys, if you need to take that method and you need to do it for the month of February, or you need to start it tomorrow, or you just need to sit down for a month and just read these books straight through, not looking to be a better person, not looking to get self-help, but just to read it, to let it soak into your bones, something will happen and something will change inside of you. And that is where my faith actually, it started to grow, when I realized, like, if I wanted to have strong faith, I had to get to know the thing that I was trying to believe in. And I had to realize that that thing didn't want to hurt me and that thing didn't want to harm me, but it only wanted to grow me and it only wanted to make me better. And that's what I've learned about, like loving someone. If we say that we love God, we didn't sign up for an easy road. We didn't sign up for everything to always be perfect. Like, loving someone is going to be hard and it's going to need to be active. It's never going to be easy and it's never going to be passive. Like, when you sign up to actually love people, then you sign up for a life of runny noses and awkward car rides and hugs that last too long and pauses that demand no noise and admitting that you were wrong, and you're going to be wrong a lot. But if you want to actually love people, then you have to be willing to be wrong and you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And if we say that God is love, then we have to find a way to actually be vulnerable and say yes to God and go and meet with him. And I'm telling you that the easiest, and this is where he lives. He lives right in this book. It's not anywhere else. People can talk to you about God all that you want, and you can hear it and you can receive it. But if you don't actually go to find out for yourself, like, it might all be for loss. Like, eventually, like, it's like if you knew a really cute boy, like, I hate to say like Jesus is like a cute boy, but like in some pictures he is a cute boy. But like, if you knew a really cute boy, or you didn't really know him, but you heard all your friends talking about him, like, oh, so-and-so did this and so-and-so did this and so-and-so did this, eventually you would want to meet him yourself. And the thing is, you can meet God. Like, you can meet him face to face every single day. And I guess that's the point of this class, is to get you closer to that. So that's my story, being as honest and real as I possibly could about it. We're going to move into the next page, 8 ways to just dig in and get started. Just so you guys know that you are able to ask questions throughout the class. And so right when I finish all this stuff up, which means I'm going to be talking a little bit faster, I'm going to be jumping around and I'm going to be answering questions that you guys have. So 8 ways to just dig in. Like I just said, the first thing, open up your Bible. I have a resource kit, a little resource thing that I'm going to put right there. I believe this is it, right? Yes. Okay. That is a resource list that I have for you guys of all the books that I'm going to bring up and mention throughout this talk. But I've listed some of the Bibles that you can get started with. If you don't have a Bible, you can get one off of Amazon. You can get one in a bookstore. Bibles are everywhere, which is amazing, but it's kind of important to have one. I always get asked what kind of translation would you go with? You know, I read ESV. This is my baby right here, the ESV Study Bible, because it's just got a lot of meat in it, and it's got a lot of notes to explain everything that I don't understand about the Bible. But it also has a concordance in the back. A concordance is basically, you can look up any word and you can see how many times it shows up in the Bible and where, and you can go and you can study the heck out of that word. But I also make sure that there is cross-references. And cross-references is basically, if you don't know much about the Bible, it's broken up into Old Testament and New Testament, before Jesus and after Jesus. But what's really cool is that the Old Testament predicts the coming of the New Testament, and the New Testament refers back to the Old Testament, and the cross-references lead you all over the scriptures, and it kind of becomes like a mystery game or like a treasure hunt, and like I am enamored with cross-referencing. So if you've ever looked at your Bible and you see all the little like numbers and dots at the right there, you see that? It's not that good of quality, but that's cross-referencing, and you want to have a Bible that has the cross-references in it. Some people ask, like, well, if I want to supplement it with a book, where do I start to learn a little bit more about my faith? I've got 3 books here that I really dig. One, J.I. Packer, Knowing God, really great book. It's also in the resource list. Desiring God by Mr. John Piper himself. This is a really old book, but it's really transformed me and changed a lot about what I believed and how I grew my faith. Or this classic that I gotta say is the first thing I ever read about God, Blue Like Jazz, Donald Miller. Fantastic book, beautiful writer. If you appreciate good words, then this book might just be for you. Some people are asking about the Bibles. There's the resource list again. I have linked everything to Amazon for you guys, like the easiest way, the best prices. Like I did it all for you. Okay. Number 2, digging in. Change the point of view. I don't know if you are like the way that I used to be, but I used to open up the Bible and I would read it so that I could find myself in the pages. I was like, I'm the Samaritan woman by the well, and I am the guy on the roadside, and I am Lazarus, and I am all these people. And then I had to realize, like, the Bible is not a story about me. I fit into this story, and God loves me, and I know that and I believe that, but this is a story about God and God's divine sovereignty, and this is a story about Jesus. And so switching the point of view in my study time actually changed so much for me, that instead of taking notes like, here's how I can become a better person, I started taking notes on who God was and what God, like what God was proclaiming and how God was sovereign. I realized if I wanted to put my trust in God, I had to be willing to make God bigger than me. And that only happened when I changed the point of view of reading the Bible. Number 3, get a prayer journal. Prayer journals are the most awesome thing in the world because you can be as honest as you want to be. You can say whatever you want in your prayer journal. I don't think that God is afraid of honesty. This is the first prayer journal that I ever read by Flannery O'Connor. It's also in the resource list. This is like literally one of the most beautiful books that I own. And she actually taught me how to pray in a sense, because I never knew that you could be this honest with God. I never knew that you could just say whatever you felt and God hears it. And so she would write down every single one of her prayers. And Flannery O'Connor was one of the greatest American writers. She died at a very young age, but she had a very strong faith. And like, just even this line right here, don't let me ever think, dear God, that I was anything but the instrument for your story, just like the typewriter was mine. Like, these honest words throughout these pages just inspired me to be able to write openly and honestly to God. I love Flan. Flan is my favorite. Also a really great prayer journal, Henry Nouwen's A Cry for Mercy. This is also a really great prayer journal. I read his prayers all the time. I feel like I'm reading his diary, but it is amazing to me, like, how honest and how real he got with God. And so check this book out too if you're looking at examples for a prayer journal, and then start your own. I keep a prayer journal. This is my prayer journal. It's my big one. And I write down everything in it. I mean, I write down small things, little things, big things, and then I highlight whenever the prayer has been answered. But I keep a running list of all of my prayers, big and small, and I also keep a running list of miracles. And miracles are usually small things like adulting completed and I got a car tag for my vehicle. But to me, that's like a modern day miracle that I am actually an adult, you know? Champagne and celebration, my friend and her counsel, winning a year of Netflix. I don't even remember when that happened, but to me it was a miracle. And I found that this is one of the greatest ways that I have been able to build my faith is by writing it all down. I really kind of felt convicted last year when I felt like God was just saying to me, like, well, I can't answer prayers if you don't actually pray them. And I was like, I need to start praying. And I know that I'm not the one that like prays in the car on the way to work. Some people are really disciplined in that. This is where I pray. And when I travel, I bring this one with me. It is a smaller version of my prayer journal, but I write down my prayers and I am able to keep track of when God has been faithful, which is a lot. So starting a prayer journal might be the place for you to start. Trying a church. I wish that I had all of the time in the world to get into this topic because people are a little bit scared or nervous about church. But I will say this, it's good to try churches out, to find the kinds of churches that you like and the kinds of churches that like you really feel the presence of God at. And it's also good to be connected with other people, to be connected with the body of believers that are able to spur you on and motivate you. It can't all just happen in one webinar. It can't just happen in one meeting. Faith is going to be a process that goes on, and church is one of those staples that has really helped me build up my faith. Another way to just dig in is if you are wondering, like, where do I start in this Bible? And you don't want to start with the gospel, pick a word. Just pick a word that you want to study the heck out of. It might be faith. It might be humility. It might be pride. It might be joy. And just start Googling like verses on joy, and then start looking them up in the Bible, and then start writing notes on them, and then start following the cross references all over the Bible, and just see what is revealed to you and what you learn from that. That is the only way to like get deep down into the word, is like to dig in the trenches of it. If you don't want to pick a word, pick a book. Pick a book that you've been interested in, that you want to start studying. I really love the book of James. I love the book of 1 Timothy. And you can get a commentary book to go with it so that it dissects everything for you. It allows you to ask a lot of questions, but it also helps you along and helps you understand the historical context of what's being said on the pages. So we buy commentary books all the time. And we really supplement our Bible reading with commentary. And so I've got a lot of commentary books over here, and I put a bunch of commentary books on the resource list for you guys. Set a realistic and attainable goal. It doesn't have to be a big goal, but what is one goal that you want to set for your faith this year? And how are you going to get closer to that? It might be that you want to pray more. It might be that you want to study the Bible a few times a week. I've worked up to the point where I study nearly every single day. But like I said, it's a process. It's like learning to go to the gym every day. At first, it's really hard, and I guess the number one thing that I would say is that your faith is not a race and it's not a competition. And so don't feel pressured to turn it into that. I remember last year I was doing read the Bible in a year program, and it was a beautiful program, but I got way behind in it, like way behind in the reading. And I was like really stressed out and like going to Lane being like, what do I do? Like I'm like 80 chapters behind. It was really like 4 or 5 chapters behind, but I was rushing through the chapters just to stay on track. And he was like, well, that's kind of ruining the point of why you're even doing this. Like the point of it is not to compete. The point is not to get to the point where, everybody, like you are leveled with everybody else. Just start where you're at, and like God will meet you there. And so remembering that it's not a race and it's not a competition. And then setting up that quiet time is so essential, and just something that I really just like think we all need a time, whether it's at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, where we are just kind of able to dig in and be quiet and be silent. A few things that I would say about quiet time is that go to a place. It can be your kitchen table. It can be a coffee shop. It can be anywhere. It doesn't even have to be quiet. Some people just like to be in the hustle and bustle of noise. But be intentional about it. Try your best to write it into your calendar and stay accountable to it, almost like you're meeting somebody for coffee, and trying to stay dedicated to that meeting. Making time for it. I find personally that my best time is in the morning. It's when my brain is just waking up, and the best time for me to sink in and really absorb what I'm reading. Have a notebook, just one notebook. You don't need to have a million notebooks. You don't need to go to Target and buy 6 notebooks in the hopes that one will inspire you enough to actually write in it, because I know that there are people in this class that actually do that. Get a Bible, just one Bible. It doesn't even need to be a pretty journaling Bible. You don't need to do watercolor painting inside of your Bible if you don't want to. I don't do any of that. Sometimes I do washi tape, but that's about it. And the biggest thing I would say is like avoid social media during this time. You don't need to be tweeting about it. You don't need to be Instagramming it constantly. Like, just sitting there and soaking in the silence and being present to what God has to say. We can't really hear him if we're never hushing out the voices of other people. Lane just came in from the gym. Hey, Lane. Okay, the next point, man, we still have a lot of ground to cover. Are you guys doing good? I hope so. I hope that I can get to all of these points, but I'm just going to try. So, number 4, you are what you eat. I mean that in 2 ways. One, in the sense that you are what you feed yourself, but you are what you eat. That sounds like the same thing, but I mean it in 2 different ways. So basically, in the sense that it's just kind of like what we were talking about going to the gym earlier, and it's about like the foods that you eat. So if you're always eating French fries and you're always eating fast food, you're going to feel sluggish and you're going to feel tired and you're going to feel like you are lacking energy. In the same way that you are only consuming things that are mindless, that don't fill you up and that don't empower you, you're gonna feel sluggish. You're probably gonna feel insecure. You're probably gonna feel a little vain or self-centered. And so remembering to digest the right things. At the same time, you are what you eat. I was thinking about it today and reflecting on it today, that I am somebody who has struggled a lot in the past with I've struggled a lot in the past with anxiety. Anxiety has been a huge thing for me. And I realized last year that basically my anxiety was so at large because I was constantly feeding things to it. I was feeding my relationships to the anxiety. I was feeding my worries to the anxiety. I was basically like anything that anxiety could feed on, I was giving it to it. And so I couldn't say that my faith was very strong because my faith was really ruled by what I was feeding myself. And that was worry, and that was fear. And so I had to learn to stop feeding things that were valuable to my anxiety and to my fear and start to feed love instead. I mean, like, I wrote a blog post on that called Hungry Love, but I really feel like what you consume, if it's negativity and if it's just really like unhealthy things, like, you won't be the healthiest person. But when you feed yourself on love and on faith and on goodness and on believing that there's actually good things for your life, your demeanor will change and your mind will change and the thoughts that you think will change. But every single thought that you think has a psychological and physiological effect. I actually learned that from Dr. Phil today, and I thought that it was really interesting, because a lot of times we're thinking a lot of negative thoughts and we wonder why we're feeling run down or stressed or tired, because there is a correlation between the thoughts that we are thinking, good or bad, and how that affects our health. Number 5, I don't know yet. This is kind of inspired by my friend Joe that I met in Starbucks several years ago. Joe was an atheist, but I learned a ton about God from Joe, just from him asking me all of his questions. He was always asking me questions, and a lot of times I didn't have the answers, like I'd go and I'd study and we'd have a conversation, but he was always bringing up things that I didn't know yet. And I think that's almost one of the most beautiful things about faith that I've learned to love and appreciate about faith, is being able to say, I don't know yet. I don't know, in the sense that I might not know my whole entire lifetime. There are some things that I just don't understand, that I may never understand. But I am a believer enough in my faith to know that I'm going to still keep seeking the answers, and I'm going to keep asking the questions. And I think a lot of times that's always like, that's a wedge in our face sometimes, is we think that we have to go to God to get every single answer, and we are afraid to ask God questions. And we don't need to be afraid to ask God questions. God seeks to know us. It's all over his word that he seeks to know us, and that he fashioned us after his own hearts. And we want to know people. When I meet somebody, I want to engage with them. I want to ask them questions in the same way that it's okay to ask God questions and get to know God in that way. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about faith, is being able to say, I don't know yet. I was reading earlier in Exodus 33. It says, now Moses used to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp, far off from the camp, and he called it the tent of meeting. And everyone who sought the Lord would go out to the tent of meeting, which was outside the camp. Skipping down to verse 11, thus the Lord used to speak to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. I don't know. I've got a lot of favorite verses in the Bible, but I would say that those are two of my favorite verses right there. And they're so simple, but I think that it's the most beautiful thing in the world that Moses would set up a tent, and that he would call the tent the meeting tent, because he was somebody who met with God face to face. And I think we still have that same ability. Somebody just asked what verse that was. That's Exodus chapter 33, verse 7 and verse 11. But I want to be like Moses in that way. We know that Moses was really intimate and really close with God, and that Moses wasn't afraid to ask God questions, and God used Moses for great things. And so why, so many years ago, could God not do the same thing here and now if we go to him and we say, I want to meet you. I don't have all the answers to my questions, but I still want to meet you, and I still want to ask my questions, and maybe you'll answer them in this lifetime, and maybe you won't, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe knowing is not the point. And maybe it's just learning to live inside of those questions. Number 6, take me to church. I mentioned this briefly, but it's just something that I personally, I understand how people feel about church. Sometimes people don't want to go to church because church, they feel like it's offensive, or they feel like people are not as accepting at church. And I get that. And I was at a point in my life where I didn't want to go to church. And I wrote a blog post once called The Church of Toast, because one time I made avocado toast, and then I spent way too long trying to Instagram this toast, and realized like I really had nothing to say in the caption except like, eating toast. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience on Instagram or whatever social media channel is, that you suddenly are like, why am I even doing this? Like, I'm not having a real impact on people. Like, I really shouldn't even be posting this at all. And I can honestly say that church used to feel a lot to me like social media, that it was important to document that I went, but it rarely ever left me changed enough to speak of it the next day. And so whenever I think about church, I think back to Acts 2:42 through 47. That is the point in the Bible where they are describing the first church. And it was people that devoted themselves to loving one another and fellowshipping with one another and learning and growing closer and praying. And they ate a lot of carbs together, which to me sounds like a great time no matter what. And they were so devoted to one another that they were like, you know what, we'll sell our possessions because we really don't need our possessions. We want to better one another. And they attended the temple together, and they were thankful whenever they got to eat. And this was the first church. And it was never a matter of if they would get invited to the next party. It was just a matter of when they would get to the next party. And as a result of all of this, like, God multiplied them. He made so many of them, and more people were praying and living life and eating carbs together. This is Acts chapter 2, verse 42 through 47. And I think that That's what I want. I want to be living with people. I want to be eating carbs with people and then never gaining weight from it. But we are living in a bit of a distorted reality. And I think that sometimes it's not that our surroundings need to change, it's our perspective needs to change. We need to realize where we are planting our seeds. We need to realize that even if the church is not perfect, we are still called to lift one another up. We are still called to commune with one another. We are still called to go through the tough stuff of life with one another. It's not going to be perfect, and it's not always going to be Instagram worthy, but like that is where you become the most full. I believe it 100%. And I mean, I remember getting an email from 2 girls about how they wanted to start hosting people on Monday nights, and they were going to sit and they were going to eat and they were going to basically have a big old honesty hour. And it sounded like the most beautiful thing in the world to me every Monday night. And I wanted to be in attendance, but I just kept thinking, like, this was the first church. Like, this was the Acts 2:42 church right here. It was small and it was local. It can be a mega church. It doesn't matter. It's wherever you find people. And you go up to somebody and you say, hey, you know, I've got this darkness. Could you help me? Because I don't want to be alone in it. And being vulnerable and being real with people. And I just wish that everybody could have a piece of that. It's not about crafting an experience so other people will be left out. It's about something real, like something real that people can come around a table, they can gather and they can eat and they can be not left behind. And so I just, you know, I think back to like social media and how sometimes social media can feel really inauthentic. And I think that a lot of it is grassroots, and a lot of church is stuff that you do off the screen. I think you should be willing to serve in the church. I think that at some point you have to stop church hopping and you pick a church that you want to go to, and you have to say, for better or for worse, I'm taking this at 100%. And that's really hard, but it's kind of the same way that you fall in love with a person. When you fall in love with a person, you don't fall in love with 80% of them with the hopes that 20% of them is going to change. You fall in love with the 100%. You take them as they are at 100%. Let me know that you guys are doing good out there. I'm going to keep trucking along. If you need to drop out, you can head out. I don't want to keep you, but we've got a few more things that we're going to dig into. Number 7, I don't think I need to repeat it too much. Discipline, again, basically I'm just going to keep talking about discipline and how everything really starts with baby steps. It's a lot of baby steps that add up into something so much bigger. And so for some of you, this is your mile 1. For some of you, this is your mile 27. For some of you, you've been on a cross-country journey and you just needed to stop for gas and you are on your way. But wherever you are, it's going to take discipline. It's going to take showing up and doing the same stuff over and over again for it to grow and build and become stronger. And it would be a lie. I'd probably be lying if I said that every day that I sat down to read my Bible was monumental and the tectonic plate shifted. That's not true. There are some days that it's just kind of like I study and I walk away and I forget some of the stuff, but we wake up the next day and it's monumental. It ebbs and flows just the way that relationships ebb and flow. But that's the beauty of it, is learning that a lot of days are going to stack up, and it's going to mean commitment at the end of our lives. It's going to mean that we believed in something and we gave our lives to something. And I think that in an instant age, that's one of the most beautiful things in the world that you could ever do. I love that quote by Richard Foster. The desperate need today is not for greater number of intelligent people or gifted people, but for deep people. Number 8, you're not a lifeboat. Basically just trying to say, like, you can't save everybody. You can't show everybody the light. I think we have this thing inside of us that we want to be Superman to everyone, and it's just not true. And I'm saying that just because I don't want you to get discouraged or worried if you feel like you can't You can't show everyone God, or you can't talk to everyone about God, because I believe that this is a life where we plant seeds. And sometimes we're planting seeds and we don't even know that we're planting seeds, but we still have to be obedient to planting those seeds wherever we go, being loving to people, kind to people, making people wonder, like, what is it about that person that's so different about that person? But not becoming confused and thinking that we ultimately can be God. We can't be God at the end of the day. We have to let God be God, and we have to sometimes in our prayers, it just has to be like, God, I can't do anything more. And so you kind of just have to take it from here. I have prayed that so many times. There have been times when I'm like, I can't even pray. But knowing that you are not a lifeboat and it is not your responsibility to save everybody in the entire world, just be genuine, just be real with people, just be truthful with people, and seek to understand people and get to know people better before you try to, before you don't understand if they don't believe what you believe. We have to get to know people. We have to have conversations with people. I think it's one of the most beautiful things that we can do is communicate and meet people where they are and ask our questions together. Don't go into things having a secret agenda. Just go in and be genuine and be honest with people. I can't say it enough. Just be honest with people. Finding the kitchen floor. I love this one because I think sometimes, I've written on my blog, but sometimes like I see God more present on the kitchen floor than I see him in pews some days. And I remember this one specific night where I went to Bachelor Night, which we have every single Monday night. It's a group of us in Atlanta, and it is like our staple. I have watched like nearly every season of The Bachelor for the last, I think I've watched every season for the last 2.5 years. And that's mainly because I keep showing up for the community. But what I love about Bachelor Night is that we've built a relationship every single week that when things get hard and when people need advice or they need wisdom, like we're able to be that for one another because we've built trust and we've built connection with one another. And there was this one night where we were just, a lot of people were going through a lot of hard stuff, and like the Bachelor episode got paused and like church just kind of like combusted on the kitchen floor, and we were sitting on the kitchen floor and we were reading passages out of Isaiah, and somebody was praying, and it was like one of the holiest things that I have ever been a part of, and it happened on the kitchen floor. And so I would really just say to that, like, don't doubt that God can't use you where you're at with the people that you are surrounded by. But the number one thing is that you have to go and you have to surround yourself with people. God loves to do things with people in groups. So we can't always play the introverted card. We can't always hide away from the rest of the world. We have to be willing to get out of our comfort zones, make relationships, even if sometimes we're going to get our heart broken, even if sometimes it's not going to work. And so, yeah, somebody just said they got the replay video in their email. Well, you're going to get it again, so don't worry. You will have this video in its fullness. Do not worry about that. Okay, kitchen floor. One other thing that I'm going to say about that, it is really one of the greatest pieces of advice that I can give you is to go and find a buddy. Find somebody that you want to study with. And if you're like, there is no one in my daily life that I can call up and say, hey, I want to like kind of figure this out together, find somebody in this group right now. Say, hey, I need a buddy. I got somebody. We can Skype. We have the technological capabilities, and we're just going to pick a book of the Bible, and we are going to start reading it. And we're going to try to figure it out, and we're going to try to understand it, and we're going to pull in some commentary. And you can do that with people on the internet, which is a really beautiful thing. So find buddies in the comments right now. You can find your buddy. I have buddies that I meet with regularly. We meet every other week. I have a Bible group that I get together with every Wednesday night, and we go through a Bible study. We're currently going through a Beth Moore study, but really just finding that person or finding those people that you can just commit to asking the questions and digging through things with. Okay. So we have a few more, and then we are getting into any questions. So I hope that you guys are holding up and you're doing good. I'm sorry. Apparently faith takes a little bit longer than I thought to talk about, and I feel like I haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully this stuff has been helpful for you guys. Okay, what about suffering? People always ask me, what about suffering? And I do have to say, I wish I had all the answers in the world. I wish that I could explain the suffering or some of the things that I see on the news or some of the things that happen in our everyday life that I'm like, there are just There's no words and there's no answers for this. I don't have all the answers for that. The Bible does have a lot to say about suffering, and there is a beautiful book called Walking Through Pain and Suffering by Tim Keller. It's in the resource list, which I will pop into here again, that I completely recommend, because when I was walking through that pain and suffering, this book was really eye-opening for me. But I will say this. I did have a girl reach out to me, and she had said to me in an email, like, I don't understand why God lets us suffer. Like, doesn't God know that if I wasn't broken, I would do so much better for him. I would be so much more adequate for him. And I remember responding to her, and I'm like, girl, I wish I was a little bit more adequate too. And I wish that I didn't suffer either. But I can tell you this, that if I didn't suffer, then I certainly wouldn't need you. And I wouldn't need my best friends. And I wouldn't need all the people that have been with me through the really messy stuff. I would be fine. I'd be self-sufficient. And so all that I can say to suffering apart from what is biblical is that suffering has always been the times in my life that have drawn me closer to other people. And suffering has also been the thing that has given me a really unique role in the lives of other people, that I've gotten to be the one to show up and open my home to people and pour a glass of wine or make a cup of tea for somebody or tuck them into bed or whatever it is. And knowing that I had this deep bond with somebody, and I don't like suffering, and I don't have all the answers for suffering, and so I'm not going to claim that I do, but I do know that suffering draws us closer to one another and binds us closer to one another. And suffering and the hard times have been the times in which I have felt like I have drawn the closest to people, and I've actually had the most faith in humanity in the times when I want to give up on humanity, which seems a little bit... it doesn't seem like it makes sense, but do you know what I mean? Because I feel like in a lot of times when I've been like, oh, I'm giving up, is when people come in and they just really ignite my faith in humanity. Prayer, how, when, where, why. We talked about the prayer journal and why the prayer journal is so awesome. You can pray anywhere. You can do prayer anywhere. I actually have an email address, and sometimes I just email God because I'm like, I've been on my phone too much. I am going to email God. And so I just send emails to God. I set up the Gmail. I also set up one when I was living in the Bronx called holderofyourhand@gmail.com. So corny. But you can email God anytime. I don't read the emails. I don't even remember the password for it. And sometimes I feel like it's just easier to shoot God an email. You can pray in your car. There are some people that say, you know what, I'm just gonna be silent on the way home from work, and I'm just gonna pray it out with God, and I'm just gonna talk to him in the car. I used to do workouts where I would like time the workouts, and every 60 seconds I would pray for a new person, but it was mainly because I couldn't get myself to pray. And so I was like, I need to start praying. So I'm going to start doing it in my workouts. And that was pretty awesome for the time that I was doing it. But prayer doesn't have any limitations, and it doesn't have any boundaries. And when people ask you why you should pray, because prayer changes things. I can tell you prayer changes things from the things that I've written down in my prayer journals, is that if you ever want to build your faith and see God move, you need to entrust things to him. You need to entrust money to him. You need to entrust relationships to him and get to see where he's actually moving in all of these things. And sometimes prayers will seem like they go unanswered, and we might not understand the resolution for all the things. But at the same time, I just feel like that is how we see God move. And that is how we get to play a part in shifting history when we pray for people and we pray for things outside of ourselves, and we get to see God being God. This last point, do you love me, is one of my favorite parts of the Bible. And it happens in John, where basically Jesus has died and he has risen again, and he is talking with Simon Peter, and they're on the beach, and he just keeps asking Simon Peter, do you love me? And he's just like, yeah, like, why are you asking me this question over and over again? Like, he keeps asking, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? And his response is, if you love me, feed my sheep. And I love that so much, like this idea of like feeding sheep, because it's action, and actions speak so loudly to me. And I think that feeding sheep in today's world is a lot of getting outside of yourself and forgetting about yourself and dropping your so-called mic so that you can show up for other people off the screen. It looks like making meals for people and gathering around a table and showing up for somebody when they've lost a loved one, or when people are going through a tragedy and they're raising money and saying, you know what, I've got a few extra dollars to give. There are so many ways that this idea of do you love me can be practical and it can be real. And I have to say that is the biggest thing that I have learned about faith, is that prayer it's an action, and it has to be an action at the end of the day. It can't be something we talk about. There was a quote from Donald Miller in one of these, if I can pull it up. It's on one of the slides. You guys can probably see it though. Where is it? Can you guys see the Donald Miller quote? What I believe is not what I say. What I believe is not what I say I believe. What I believe is what I do. And I'm a big believer in that, is that faith is a bunch of action steps stacked up on one another, and that at the end of it, people will know you by your love. They will know you by the things that you do. There will come a time where the statuses are going to fade and the things you put on Instagram are not going to be mattering. A lot of times, that's kind of today, 2017. A lot of people are really fed up with social media and are searching for something more. And this is something deep and it's real, but it comes from action. It comes from action every single day. It comes from making the time for it. It comes from praying when we don't feel like praying. It means that we built a life off the screen, a faith off the screen that was so much more powerful and real than we could have ever described to somebody in 140 characters. So I just talked a lot, and I feel like I didn't even touch it all. I feel like I could keep going and going and going. So I want to answer a few questions from you guys. I have posted a few times the resource list, so I'm just posting it again for you. It's links to all of the things on Amazon that I've been referencing tonight, books on different topics that I found to be really helpful. So if you guys have questions, just be popping them into the box. I'm going to answer questions for a few minutes before we kick out, and some people will go to bed and some people will go to dinner and some people will keep writing notes and maybe some people will open their Bible. You don't have to be afraid of it, I promise you. And if you have more questions and you want to send me an email, or if you're like, I don't even know that I believe in Jesus and I don't know what's the first step, send me an email, please. I would love to respond to your email, and I would love to help you answer some of those questions. Somebody just asked me the question, when did you start loving yourself? Well, that's a really good question. Well, the Bible actually says that you're supposed to love people like you love yourself. And I realized, well, that's a big problem. If I didn't love myself, then I can't possibly love other people well. If I'm not being nice to myself, if I'm not being kind to myself, there's no way that I could actually I could love other people. It would be fake. It would not be real. It would be inauthentic. I did write a 2-part blog post on that. It's called You Should Go and Love Yourself, Part 1 and Part 2, if you want to read on it. But really, I have to say that the best way that I've ever learned to actually love myself is when I learned to forget about myself. And that seems like such a cliche answer, but when I just started to invest in other people and like really do everything that I could to help other people, I learned to have a much more of an appreciation for myself. And from seeing the way that like God could use me and the impact that could be made, it made me want to take care of myself better. And the way I take care of myself is through fitness and through food. And I learned that if I took care of myself, then I could better take care of other people. It was kind of like a cycle. And so I didn't learn to love myself by standing in a mirror and saying, you're beautiful and you're awesome. But I learned to be kinder to myself. I learned to say nicer things to myself. I learned to not be so hard on myself. And I'm always learning to do that every single day. But the biggest root of loving myself was taking care of myself and learning that I was somebody who was worthy of being taken care of, and then letting that trickle onto my love for other people. Somebody just asked if I could restate the 8 ways to dig in. Yes, I can. I hope it's 8, but I'm not very good at math. Let's do it. Number 1, open up your Bible. Number 2, change the point of view when you are reading your Bible. Number 3, get a prayer journal. Number 4, try a church. Just try it. Just go. Just see. email me afterwards. I would love to hear about your church adventures, and I could tell you a few great stories and horror stories. We're honest here. Number 5, learn to appreciate silence. I actually don't even think I said that one, but that is one of the 5s, is learning to shut off your phone and appreciate silence and not be afraid of the silence. A lot of people are afraid to be silent because they are afraid of the lies that they're going to hear, and they are afraid to sit with themselves. But learning to be silent for long stretches of time will make you a much stronger person. Number 6, pick a word and study that word with your cross references and your concordance. Number 7, set a realistic and attainable goal. And number 8, turn off Netflix, get off the phone. I kind of nixed that one and just got into the notes about the quiet time, like setting up an intentional quiet time is all snaked into turning off the Netflix, getting off the phone, and stopping filling the holes with things that just don't actually fill the holes. Jennifer asked, how do you talk about faith with non-believers? This is a really great question. Honestly, the best thing that I've ever learned is that if I am sitting in my faith every single day, if I'm reading my Bible every single day, if I am asking questions every single day, and I ask a lot of questions, I'm like, God, that seems pretty jacked up. I don't really get that. I don't really understand that. Like, I'm basically Moses in the sense that I am always being like, God, tell me more about this. I found that when I do the work behind the scenes to spend time with God, to seek to understand his people better, I am naturally in a tandem with God. So when I'm talking about God, I can't help but talk about God because I'm spending so much time with him in essence. I'm always praying and I'm always seeking to know more about God, that when I'm talking to believers or non-believers, I just say God as if he's like a third person. Like my mom and I always like make a joke about how like God is like the third member of Destiny's Child. It's like Michelle, and then who's the other person in Destiny's Child? There's Michelle, and there's Kelly, and then there's God, who's Beyonce. It's like he is kind of just like that third member. And like we always are like, God is kind of like the third member of our posse. But I found that the more I spend getting to know God and being real and authentic in my faith, the more I can't help but talk about it. And a lot of times it really doesn't offend people because I don't shove it down people's throats. I'm not saying like there is hell and fire and brimstone waiting for you. Like I never say that to people. I just really talk about what God has done for my life. And then I hope that my actions and my words show that to be truthful. And it's crazy because I get a lot of people that don't really believe in God coming to me and reaching out to me. And these are people that I know in everyday life. They're not readers that are saying, hey, like, I don't really pray, but I know you pray. So could you pray about this thing? Or asking me questions about the Bible. And I just find that like, that naturally happens when I stay genuine and authentic and I just commit to knowing God above other things. And I just kind of let him guide me through every conversation, but I am not force feeding anybody with anything. I am letting people ask their questions and letting people come to their own conclusions and really just dialoguing with people and being okay to say like, you know what? I don't know either sometimes. I don't have all the answers, but I know that this is about love. And I know that this is truth. And I know that this fills me up more than anything has ever filled me up. And so if you ever want to know how I got filled up, I am more than welcome to talk to you about it. Okay, next question. How do you continue that passion and intimacy outside of worship time? And what is your favorite worship music? Worship music, to be honest, like I've had to learn to appreciate worship and like worship because, and Lane will always tell me that like worship is not just the music in church. But sometimes I'm like, can we just get through the songs because I want to get to the message? And I've had to learn that like worship in essence is singing to God. But I've also had to learn that worship, everything we do in life, whether we are working, whether we are talking to someone, whether we are reading our Bible, whether we are singing songs in a church, in essence is worship. And it is a chance to sing songs to God, not literally, but just to be grateful and just to be happy and just to be thankful, even when the situations don't look all that great. And I can't say I'm perfect at that. There are definitely times within a day that you'd be like, that girl's not worshiping right now. But I don't worship in traffic jams, but I am trying every single day to be able to pull back and to be grateful and to let God know that I'm grateful for the breath that I've been given and the life that I've been given and the people that I've been given. And the best way that I worship is through action steps, whether it's writing love notes, or it is sending cards, or it is encouraging my team members, or it is making meals. There's so many tangible ways that I feel like I can worship and give glory to God through my hands and through my speech, and not just through singing. How do you keep your fire going throughout the day? I'm on fire for him in quiet time in the morning, but as the day goes on, I feel as though I am bombarded with the craziness of the world and find it difficult to find him. Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I love being able to email him, because I email so many people throughout a day, and I tweet so many people, and I Instagram people, that I just kind of have this email address, and I just shoot emails off throughout the day so that like I'm remembering to pray for little things. They're just little prayers that I send throughout the day. I'm not going to say that there aren't days that I don't forget about God, or I feel like I'm acting like as if I don't believe in God. And there are days where I don't understand everything that God is doing, but I think one of the things is just to give yourself grace for that. I mean, like, if you ever read Henry Nouwen's books, he's always like bullying himself, being like, oh, I wish I thought of you more, God. And I'm like, you thought of God a lot. And you really should take a chill pill and just like know that you're doing good and that you always have room for improvement. But like seeking to get to the point where you think about God all the time is a pretty good intention. And so I think that God honors that. And I think just baby steps, little baby steps. But honestly, the biggest way that I keep it in the forefront is by sending those emails. Just reminding myself to pause and to shoot a little prayer out and to let it go. You can always be praying for people throughout a day. Somebody just asked, how do you incorporate faith into your marriage? Good question. I'm only about 2 months into marriage, not even. And so I can't speak from an expert point of view, but I can say that we do keep faith as the strongest and the biggest thing in our marriage. It is the center of our marriage. It is the thing that we got married for, was our faith. So we do Bible studies together. We try to sync up our time with God together. We go to coffee shops and we read different books together, and we are always talking about what we feel like we're learning, what books we're reading, how we can challenge one another. And so we don't let it slip from the center. We keep it as the center, and we keep pushing towards wanting to be better. And honestly, like, we set goals all the time, and the reason goals is because we know that we can continually be better, and that if we are better, then we can glorify God better. And if we want our marriage to glorify God, then we have to continually be putting him at the center. Somebody asked, what is the email address for God that you use? Okay, it's holderofyourhand@gmail.com. Don't judge me. I made it in 2010. And you can email God at any point. Like I said, I'm not reading the emails, but if you just need to shoot a little prayer, he will get it. I like to believe he gets emails. That's not biblical. It's not there. So don't like quote me on that. But I think that he probably reads emails. I think that prayers take many forms. How do you suggest we start a kitchen floor group? I feel like God has been speaking to me about it, but I don't know how to start one without it being corny or sounding religious. Honestly, maybe you just frame it like, hey, we just want to talk about faith, or we want to have an honesty hour. I love that they phrased it as an honesty hour, being like, you can come in and you can talk about whatever you want to talk about, and we're not going to judge you, and we're not going to say no, and we're going to have conversations with you and dialogue with you. And so I think that when you leave the conversation open to go wherever God wants to lead the conversation, like, honestly, like, I don't think there's anything corny about an honesty hour. I think a lot of people are craving an honesty hour. And so we're saying we're going to talk about a lot of different topics, because ultimately God is the center, yes, like, but at the same time, like, talk about relationships and talk about guys and talk about dating apps. And closer with people is by talking about all different kinds of life with one another. I can tell you from my Bible study group, of about 5 of us girls, and we all go to different churches, and we all believe in the same God, and we don't agree on everything, but there are some times that we get together for the Bible study and we never actually sit and study. Sometimes we talk about the things that we're dealing with, or the problems that we're having or we're facing, and we walk away and we knew that that was exactly what needed to happen that evening. And so many restrictions on it and allowing God to do what he is going to do anyway and saying, you know what, like, I'm just going to invite people and I'm going to trust that you're going to be on the kitchen floor with us and you're going to do what I can't do. And yeah, that is what I would say about starting your kitchen floor honesty hour. And if any of you guys do that, please tell me and then invite me. I want to come. How do you overcome fear of vulnerability in your life and especially in your writing? Little by little, bit by bit. I say this in my writing intensive. A few of you asked about it. Seats are still open for it. HannahBruncherCreative.com. Go to the store this Saturday. But vulnerability is something that is little by little. I always say you go ankle deep and then you go calf deep and then you go knee deep. And so it just starts by sharing one truth and then another truth and then another truth and never oversharing to the point where you're like, that's uncomfortable. I can't really like deal with the fact that she just shared that to the entire internet. But learning that like people will learn from your vulnerability and your transparency. People will learn from you being honest. Like I think this world is craving honesty more than anything right now. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. Somebody says, have you found Bible study groups outside of church? Yes, I have. I go to a very big church and I have found people to study the Bible with at my church. But like I said, my Bible study group has one person that goes to my church. I think there might be two that go to my church. Yeah. But the other girls don't go to my church. We all go to different churches, but we are all female entrepreneurs that have a lot of the same things in common and we still show up for one another. I don't think it has to be consolidated just to your church. I think that there's so much outside of our churches that we can also link arms with and commit to studying with. But the church is also a really great resource for that. My anxiety is the biggest giant I have in my life. I fear silence and the emotions that come with it. How do you begin that silence in times of bad anxiety and depression? It really is like, I mean, apart from like therapy and like constantly like having to keep an eye on my anxiety, I think I realized like when me and Lane had just started dating, maybe like 2 or 3 months into dating, I realized that like any time that my mind had like free time or like I had any kind of silence, I would use it to kind of tear apart our relationship and basically let my anxiety feed on our relationship. And I came to the realization of like, I'm with a really great man and he's really awesome. And I do not want to ruin this relationship. But if I keep feeding this relationship to my anxiety, my friend always told me, you know, your anxiety is always going to look for something else to feed on. It's going to feed off of whatever you give it. And that couldn't be more true. And so it's like, I literally mentally had to just start saying to myself, like, you're not allowed to have that. Like, okay, I started to worry about my future. Nope, anxiety is not allowed to have that. I would have to like cut it off and start thinking on something else. And the only way that I think to get rid of all those negative thoughts is to start to replace it with good thoughts, good literature, good words, good scriptures, good books. Like this is a way to just like replace the thoughts in your head that are telling you lies on repeat, is to find some other truth to hang on to. Somebody just asked, okay, I'm going to answer. How do you approach answering questions from atheists? How do you explain how you are filled up with God's words? Okay, I will say this. I don't really get into arguments with atheists a lot because I just am not going to like waste my energy arguing, because I find that a lot of times atheists that want to argue are never going to be happy with whatever answer you give them. But it's okay if we don't believe the same things, you know, but like I'm going to live my truth and you can live your truth and we can have civil conversations, but I'm not willing to have arguments. I'm just not going to do it. But like I said, my friend Joe in Starbucks, he was an atheist and I loved conversation with him. I love this man. He's so wonderful because we could have honest conversations and I could share my truth and he could tell me why he believed what he believes. And I could hear his stories of growing up in the church and why he walked away from it. And little by little, we and one another. And the thing is, like, I considered it a victory that we were always coming back to one another and asking more questions. And so I don't like to argue with people. Maybe that's just me. And maybe I I don't really want to get into the conflict side of it, but I want to say, if you want to know what I believe in and why I love what I love and why it allows me to treat people in a certain way and why it fills me up at the end of the day, I will tell you all about it. And it's wonderful because I get a lot of readers who are atheists on my blog, and they tell me, I don't believe in God, but I would believe in the God that you write about, or I kind of understand why you give your life to that. And to me, that's a victory, that if I just keep doing what I'm doing and I'm just genuine and I'm real, like, God's going to do things because God's bigger than me. Like, God can handle it. And so just being open and not really wanting to start an argument. I'm not going to start a Facebook battle. I'm just going to be genuine, and I'm just going to love the heck out of people, and I'm not going to discriminate. I'm going to love the man who's homeless outside of our office. I'm going to go get him a cinnamon bun and some coffee when he wants it. I am going to love the people I don't understand. I am going to love the family members that are hard to love. And love takes on different shapes and forms. But who am I to judge? Who am I to tell people? Like, who am I to get into arguments that a lot of times don't lead places with people? I would just rather lead with love. And if you want to sit down and you want to talk truth, we can do that too. Yeah. So maybe that was an answer. Maybe it wasn't. It's a hard question, but it's a good question. Let's see. We're going to pick one more question. Okay. How do you do your prayer journal? Is it a running list that you pray through every day? Sometimes I go back over and I pray. A lot of times I just pray, and then I kind of like, it's little things. It's like, help me in this meeting today, or help me. Where is it? There we go. Wait, I'm having a hard time getting to it. Here we go. Like financial provision for the month of October was a prayer. Free my heart from bitterness. I was dealing with bitterness with a certain situation. Getting a job for Brooke and using her talent well. Providing for Aaron and Jared at the time when they wanted a house, and a house was provided. It was little things like that. I literally just write a running list of them. Just everything that I considered to be a miracle for that day and everything I considered to be a prayer for that day. And it is really cool to go back and to like see what God has done. And I love, like, I prayed a bunch on my brother's wedding day, that it would be a really special day and it would be really wonderful, and let it be a day of celebration. And like, God probably knew at that point that I was actually going to start talking to my now husband on that day. And I just think it's really special that it's sitting here in prayer form, and that it was a better day than I could have ever imagined, because a year later I'm married to Lane. So yeah, that's just kind of like, there's no rules to prayer. There are beautiful prayers in the Bible, but you can be honest with God. I would say, like, if you are going to go and get one resource, I'm telling you, like, pick up one of these prayer journals. Maybe pick up the Bible first, but like, one of these prayer journals will show you so much about praying honestly and praying real and praying authentically. This is how I kind of learned to pray from these two books right here. I'm not going to lie to you. I found their prayers to be too beautiful to not write down some of my own myself, in the hopes that maybe my children would come across them one day and be like, wow, she was really spiritual. So yeah. Thank you guys for being here tonight and for talking with me and hearing my heart. I hope this class has been good for you. I hope that it's filled you in a lot of ways, and it has caused you to maybe ask more questions. Once again, I am just plopping the resource list in here for you guys. But thanks for coming out, and I will make sure that you all get the replay tomorrow. If that's weird or wonky, if anybody took some really good notes tonight and you want to send them my way, that would be wonderful. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to seeing some of you guys in my writing intensive on Saturday. That one is 3 hours. So gear up for that, but have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you guys soon. Or if you want to stay in chat, we can stay in chat. We can talk about other things if you want to. But I'm probably going to stop the broadcast. I'll see you guys later.